You're live. Okay. So I think we can start now. Hello everyone. My name is Isha Tsagale and I am the head coordinator of AICVS. AICVS is the Artificial Intelligence and Computer Vision Society of Cummins College of Engineering. We as a society aim to introduce the students to techniques of AI and computer vision and help them gain a good understanding of what happens behind the scenes. Every year, we conduct sessions, hackathons, and events with talks from industry professionals as well as student speakers. So, during this lockdown, we decided to start our own webinar series called AICVS 1.0, which will further help in bridging the gap between juniors and seniors. So, welcome to AICVS 1.0, and we'll begin with the first speaker of our webinar series, who is also our very own former head coordinator of AICVS, Michelle Davies. Michelle is a current final year student of computer engineering. During several research internships, she has worked on dimensionality reduction, program analysis, and formalization of programming languages. She has published 3 papers as a co-author during her internships in a span of 6 months. She loves student outreach and will talk about her experience with undergraduate research and how to pursue research yourself. Over to you, Michelle.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. So I'll be talking about my experience pursuing research as well as what you can do if you want to pursue research. And just as a quick disclaimer, I would like to say, first of all, that survivorship bias is very real. The term survivorship bias is a very interesting backstory that you should go and look at. But basically, what it means is that to understand why someone has succeeded or why someone has failed, you should not look why someone has succeeded. You should not just look at why what they have done. You should also look at people who have failed to do what the person who has succeeded has tried to do, to get a bigger picture of what you should and should not do, or how much of it attributes to luck. So I have been very lucky, and I have gotten the opportunities that I have through certain by doing certain things that I'll talk about later. But I have also failed enough. So hopefully that will allow me to give you a rounded view about what it means to pursue research. Another thing is that I am only 20. I am at most 2 years older than people who are watching this. So everything I know and everything that I'll talk about is a reflection of those 2 years. But it would be very wise for you to seek out more experienced perspectives just to get a greater view of research. And yes, this is a very general discussion about undergraduate research. It is not about the specific kinds of research that I have done, just in the interest of time. And yes, I will also discuss privilege wherever is relevant, and I'll aim to be as transparent as I can. Another thing, the reason why I want to give you this talk is that I want to introduce you to research, and if you decide that this is something that you might be interested in, help you apply for research internships. I also have a mildly selfish reason that when I was a junior in this college, there wasn't any senior who was publicly talking about research. So there was no one I could look up to, or any path that I could see for research. And I sort of stumbled into this. And so hopefully I'm sharing that experience so that you won't have to make the same mistakes that I make, and you have a better idea of everything. Another thing is that this is my final year, as Isha said. I will be leaving after 1 year, but again, as Isha said, I'm very passionate about student outreach. I think it's very important. I think you can really change lives by doing honest outreach. And my reason for giving this talk is also hopefully to is also in the hope that you might carry this forward one day, and you might tell your juniors about what it means to pursue research as an undergraduate. So yes, now what are my qualifications to give this talk? The first would be that last summer I was a summer research intern at IIT Patna in the domain of machine learning and dimensionality reduction. I worked with the research lab headed by Dr. Jimson Matthew and published and helped publish 3 papers over the span of 6 months, and all of them were co-authorships. This summer, I'm a summer research intern at IIT Bombay. I work with Professor Dr. Head Co-ordinator, and the domain is program analysis and points to analysis. That is part of compiler construction and optimization. And my B project is also a research project that is sponsored by IIT Bombay. And the topic is formalization of programming languages. And I mean, it's still underway. So there's not much I can talk about in terms of the BA project since I've just started the 4th year. But if anything, that might be a slight qualification. So yes, part 1, what is research? Now, this is a very hard question that people who are much better than me have tried to answer, and they themselves have taken hours and hours to answer. So instead of trying to take an entire hour talking about what research means to me, I'm instead going to point you to 2 other talks that you can look at after this talk is over. The first is What is Research by the professor I'm working with at IIT Bombay, and a talk called You and Your Research by Richard Hamming. Both are very inspirational, both shed a lot of light on what it means to do research and how to do good research. And by the way, this PPT and all its supporting documents are linked in the live stream description box. So there's a GitHub repo link, and you can find the PPT there. So yeah, as I said, go watch these 2 videos after the talk because they're really good and they'll really give you a rounded view of and an older perspective of what it means to do research. For me, it is innovation and learning at its purest. And now a lot of people can talk about innovation and learning. And the reason why I say that it is innovation and learning at its purest is that now imagine that the whole of human knowledge and everything that anyone has ever discovered is contained within this circle. Okay? What you learned in school up till 8th standard, say, is in that blue circle. It's a very small part of the entire human knowledge. What you learned till 12th standard would encompass the blue circle and the yellow circle. And then you choose a certain specialization in college. For me, it is computer engineering. And you study that. That is the orange one. So now at as a second year student, or even as a first year student, this is how much you know. But as you can see, there's a lot more that you don't know. And generally, as a master's student, you try to learn what is in the gap here. So if you're a master's and you choose a further specialization, a subfield in your current field. So if you choose, say, machine learning as a specialization in masters, you will then learn a very narrow part of this broad, this reach to the outer circumference. Now, what it means to do research is to break this circumference. It is to think about what lies beyond what is already known by mankind. That is research at its purest. You're trying to increase human knowledge essentially. And this is that it's very incremental when you look at the big picture, but that is what you're trying to do. And the reason why, so that's why it's innovation at its purest, because no one has ever done it before, and that's what you are trying to do. And it's learning because as an undergraduate, you are at this stage. There is a lot you still don't know, and a lot that master students know above you. So you have to then bridge that gap to be able to even cross this circumference. And I'll talk about that later, but that is what research means to me as an undergraduate. So there is also a lot of people also talk about the spectrum of research. You can have incremental research, you can have fundamental research. And incremental is where you build on the current body of work incrementally. So you change a small part of an algorithm, or you find some new interesting result. And fundamental is really is research that causes a lot of disruption. So for example, Albert Einstein, when he came in with his theory of general relativity, fundamental research that caused a lot of disruption in the world of physics. So those are two types of research that you can encounter as a student or as a researcher. So now, research also generates an incredible amount of intellectual property or IP. This is the true value of research, and this is why a lot of companies actually have these research labs all across the world, even in India, where they try to do research because that is where the innovation comes in. In fact, IBM set the record for 9,000 US patents in 2019, and India was the second highest contributor of around, I think, 900 patents. So there's a lot of, so if you think that research is just for academia, you're mistaken. It's also very heavily prevalent in industry. And again, you should watch the talk by Uday Ketkar sir to learn more about the difference between research and academia and industry. So yeah, that is what research is. Now, why should you consider research? What could it possibly be helpful for? And a question that I get a lot is, would it be useful in campus placements? And this is what I'll try to talk about first. And the answer to this is sure, it can be useful, mainly because the ability to do research or the ability to contribute to research shows an ability to learn a new concept deeply because you have to bridge that gap, apply it, and then present it. The presentation may be in a form of a PPT. It can also be in the form of a paper. But these are all skills that research shows, and it's something that is valued, obviously, in a company because they want people who have an ability to learn deeply and apply and present. But it's also something that you can talk about in your interview. So it's something that will come up, and if you can talk deeply about the research that you have tried to contribute to, it's a great talking point. So, but I will also say that nobody is going to give you a job based on the research that you're doing in campus placements. That's not going to happen. I think you should do research simply to explore different fields and to, again, learn things deeply. And I'll talk about that later. But yeah. Now, if you're interested in going for higher education, master's and PhD program admission committees also value research experience. Now, this comes with the caveat that PhD programs value it much more than master's programs. And it is entirely possible to get into a master's program without having done any research. But the more competitive the program, the more they value research experience. And for this, you should look at the profiles of students who have gotten into different institutions that you might want to get into. For example, you should look at the profile of students in Stanford's machine learning specialization for the computer science postgraduate program. And it's very impressive. They have years of experience. So yeah, don't just take my word for it. You should go and look at it yourself, just to understand what sort of research experience these universities might be looking for. And personally, it's lots of fun to do research. It's very intellectually stimulating and enriching, and you get to learn a lot. And you might just like it so much that you end up making a career out of it. So I've been talking, as Isha said, I've been involved in student outreach for about 2 years now. And in talking to students about research, I've come across a lot of misconceptions. One of them is that you need to be smart to do research. You need to be really smart, otherwise, you can't possibly do research. And to that, I say no. You don't really need to be smart. Um, Smart in the sense of IQ. That is not something that is going to determine how much research you are capable of doing. You do need to be driven, excited, and committed to the work because, again, it's not easy. As an undergraduate, you are trying to learn graduate level courses. In each internship that I've done, I've had to look at graduate courses and look at lectures 2 3 times to be able to understand what they're saying. And that's why you need to be committed and you need to be driven to be able to come back to something and persevere. You also need to be excited because you will not be committed unless you are excited. You're not going to get up for the next day and do this work unless you're excited about the subject that you are doing research in. Another misconception is that you need to know what field you want to work in from the get go. So you have to be someone who has liked computers from the age of 5. And when you were 18, you decided that machine learning is what I want to do for the rest of my life. So then you go and get a research internship in machine learning. And then you spend your entire life doing research in machine learning. That's not the case. In fact, I changed fields. I did an internship in machine learning, then figured out, took some things from the internship that really interested me, and figured out that maybe my I would like programming languages better as a research topic, and then found something to suit this. So you shouldn't look at the field that you are interested in as a constant that you should know from the starting. Instead, what's more important is to start, is to pick a field that you are at least slightly interested in and then work in it and then see if your interest holds. If not, there are other fields that interest you. So you might as well go and explore those after that. And additionally, a lot of research is multidisciplinary. There's a researcher in Seoul who studied poetry in college, and in college got to know this professor of mathematics and learn mathematics on the side. And because he didn't have this extensive undergraduate experience, formal experience in mathematics, he was able to solve, I think, a century old question in mathematics simply because he didn't see these boundaries of disciplines. So a lot of research is multidisciplinary. You should be able to apply concepts from one discipline to another. So having research in a different discipline isn't going to be a bad thing. It's going to give you more experience. Another thing that I think a lot of students have in their mind, even if they won't say it to me out loud, is that this idea that I don't have any business thinking about doing research as a common student. I need to be an IITian, or I need to be a genius, or just I need to be something that I'm not to even think about doing things like research. And to that, I say, obviously, that's wrong. That is not the case. I'm not going to talk too much about this because it's very obviously wrong. And you are what you tell yourself. So if you tell yourself that you're not fit to do research, then you're going to become someone who's not fit to do research. Don't hold yourself back. Give it a shot. If nothing else, give it a shot and see if you like it. So yeah, another topic that comes up when I talk to students is, can I do independent undergraduate research? So is it possible for me to write a paper independently without the help of a professor? I'm very skeptical about this, and these are my reasons why. So first of all, what is a research paper? A lot of students think that you have to choose an algorithm, get a few results, cite a few sources, and then it's a paper, and then you can get published immediately, and it's great. And they think that they have really achieved something. This can be a mild misconception because you might impress your friends, but you aren't fooling anyone else. Remember what I talked about research being breaking that circumference and contributing to a body of knowledge uniquely? You, when you choose an algorithm, get some results, cite a few sources, it's not that. And now there are literature surveys that don't contribute to a body of knowledge, but instead perform a survey on different algorithms or methods, and those are legitimate research papers, obviously. But you cannot say that you have written a research paper and have gotten published immediately to someone who is in the field. No one in the field, say if you're doing this for a master's program, nobody in that graduation committee will look at your research paper and think a research paper that you worked on for, say, a month or two, maybe, and think that definitely this child has put in a lot of work, and clearly it's a year's work, as a lot of other researchers, and they get very impressed with it. At most, they look at it, at most, it won't affect your application. So don't be in a hurry to publish. Publishing is a very tricky business. People can take years to publish because they're focusing on publishing quality instead of quantity. Another thing is that predatory journals and conferences exist that will take your paper in, tell you that you have no corrections to make at all, but will offer to publish that paper as long as you pay 10,000 rupees. And you can go ahead and do that. That's fine. It's an individual choice. But again, they're not doing peer review, they're not reputable, they only want your money, that's all. And additionally, publishing in certain places can then turn out to be a disqualification. So if people see that you have a first authorship in certain predatory journals or conferences, they would ask why you didn't know any better, and why you have done this thing. And generally, if you're a student, it is still excused because you don't know what you're doing. But again, why do you want to bring that upon yourself? Might as well have quality research experience instead of a bunch of research papers that um, don't contribute anything or that you haven't really worked in. In addition, so what the point of undergraduate research is to do it without a professor. Independent undergraduate research is to do it without a professor. And if you, I mean, always keep that diagram in front of you. You have to first bridge that gap between an undergraduate and the circumference, and then break out of it. You cannot do this without a professor to help you. And good work, in my experience at least, takes a lot of time and a lot of expertise, not luck. You cannot stumble into a result that is wonderful without having spent a lot of time and working with people who are really experienced in that field. Research is a marathon, it's not a race. So treating it like a 2-month sprint doesn't add value. And yeah, do you really want to do bad work? Given the option, you should always strive to do good work and not work that is subpar. And this is where research internships come in. It's a great place for you to try out research, see if it's a good fit for you, and also try out fields and see if it's a good fit for you. So, yeah. Part two, how do you do a research internship? Now, before applying, a lot of people ask, how do you choose a domain? Now, what I would say is just pick a domain that you're interested in and dive right in. There's nothing more to it. But then how do you pick a domain? I'm interested in a lot of things. I think graph theory is really interesting. I also think machine learning is really interesting. A lot of people have been talking about blockchain. That seems interesting. What do I pick? Pick anyone. Explore everything that seems interesting to you, and then just pick one and go ahead with it. For exploring, you should use places like Coursera, Udemy, YouTube, in fact. Anything that helps you think about a field, know more about it, is you exploring that field. And build up a love of learning about everything else. So you should think about whether you like learning this field rather than how prestigious this field seems to you. Learn thinking concepts because rote learning will not serve you here. And once you've got your basics right in terms of fields that interest you, you should go ahead and pick one and jump right in. And I'll give you my own experience in this. When in first year, I did a course on functional programming called Programming Languages on Coursera. And I really like the course. It's by Dan Grossman from the University of Washington, and it's a fantastic course. And you should definitely do it if you think that programming languages might be something that interests you. But in second year, I did a course on machine learning, the Andrew Ng course by Stanford. And I thought that was really interesting too. So I went ahead, dove right in, and did a research internship in machine learning, and then decided whether this intensive research is in this field is what I wanted to do. So yes, you're still an undergrad. You might as well try stuff out now and realize that it's not for you rather than realizing it later. And all good research experience is useful experience, regardless of domain. And in a sense, even bad research experience would be useful experience because you'd then be thinking about what a good research internship or good research means to you. So when thinking about topics, it's also the question also arises that whether you should choose a hot topic or a not so hot topic, whether you should think about something that's talked about a lot like machine learning or deep learning or blockchain, or something that's not so hot like programming languages and compilers, in which research seems to be have ended in the 1960s. So to this, there are several advantages and disadvantages to going in for a field that is hot versus something that is not talked about as much. One advantage of a hot topic is that there is a lot of oversaturation in the field, and a lot of people are trying to do work in the field, and the advantage of this would be that it's a very exciting place to be in because there is a lot of talk going on about it. But matter of fact that there is a lot of oversaturation, so it might be difficult for you to distinguish yourself. Another thing is that you might get a very fancy PI who's done a lot of work in this hot topic, but who has no time for you. And we'll see that as an undergraduate who is looking at research internships, a PI or a principal investigator, who is the professor who you'll be working with during your research internship, the most important thing a PI can give you is time. As an undergraduate, you need time. That is pretty much the principal thing that you need. And if you get a PI who has done a lot of work but who has no time for you and cannot interact with you might not do as much, essentially. Another thing is that a lot of people do fake research, and that is, they're not doing real work. And if you choose a hot topic, just there are a lot more people who are trying to do research in that, and you might end up with someone who's doing subpar work or who's doing work that you particularly of a certain quality that you do not want to do. A disadvantage of not so hot topics is that it's not flashy. No one's talking about it. There are articles written every day about machine learning and deep learning and blockchain, but nobody's talking about not flashy topics. But again, and low-hanging fruit are all gone. Impact is harder. Yep. The low-hanging fruit are all gone. Impact is harder. But again, you shouldn't approach this as there is no work that is left to be done in not so hot topics. You could have very well said that about physics, but then Einstein came in and revolutionized everything. So there is always work to be done. There are always ways to bridge that frontier. You need to think about it. That's why research is hard. But there won't be easy. There won't be as easy things to do. So what do you choose? Do you choose a hot topic or do you choose a not so hot topic? Well, either can be a field that interests you. If your genuine interest is in machine learning, go for it 100%. If your genuine interest is in something like compilers, go for it 100%. If your interest is due to how impressive a field sounds, realize that that is not sustainable and that won't help you maintain that interest. So keep that in mind. How much someone's talking about a field changes over years. So if someone is suddenly not talking about the field you're doing research in, and because of that you stop thinking that it's interesting, then that's fine. But
Hi, we're having some technical difficulties. The speaker is going to be back in 2 minutes, so just stay there. We're just coming back.
Okay. Am I audible now? Is it unfrozen?
No, no, we can hear you.
Okay, fine, good. I'm so sorry the internet went. Uh, didn't
Can you share your
anticipate that
screen?
happening. Yeah, okay, hold on. Um, yeah. Can you see my presentation now?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, fine. So yeah, now I think I talked about how you should have different levels of expectation from yourself as an undergraduate for a research internship. And the baseline level of expectation that you should have is a certificate of internship. So you go there, you spend 2 months working with a professor, and you get a certificate of internship at the end of it. Another thing is that the higher level of expectation is that you learned something interesting very deeply, and you really delved deep into a field and understood a particular subfield. The higher level of expectation is that you've written a paper or you've contributed to a certain paper. The fourth level would be that you have then published that paper in a reputable journal or conference. And if anybody has this idea that they will be doing groundbreaking research for 2 months, it's not going to happen simply because you're an undergraduate. You don't have these years of experience that um, people have when doing groundbreaking research. People do groundbreaking research after their PhDs. So they spend 2 years as a master. They spend maybe 3 to 4 years as a PhD student. So that's around 6 years from an undergraduate. And then they do a postdoc for maybe 2 years. And that is the kind of experience that you need to be able to do groundbreaking research. So you're not going to be able to do groundbreaking research, but as long as you learn something interesting very deeply and you commit to something and really see through the kind of work that you have been assigned, I think that's a really good, that qualifies as a good research internship. Another thing is the levels of expectation that you can have from a professor. So you can expect your professor to give you resources. That's a baseline. They will be able to send you slides that they have written for their own courses that they teach, or they'll be able to give you YouTube links or courses that they would recommend you to watch. Another thing, and the second level of expectation from a professor would be in terms of guidance. Are they available to tell you what you should be doing, or a different area that you can concentrate on, etc.? The third level would be time, and time is the best thing that a professor can give you because it's the most valuable thing that a professor can give you. As an undergraduate, you are not valuable, and you are not going to be valuable, at least in those, at least for a few years, which you obviously have not spent with that professor or in that subfield when you approach them for a research internship. So time that they give an undergraduate is not going to give any remarkable returns for them, which is why time can be such a useful and essential expectation from a professor, and a very valuable one, because that professor giving you time is what will help you grow as a researcher and help you explore the field. Something that you should not expect is spoon feeding and personal lectures. Nobody is going to sit with you and explain a subfield or graduate course from start to end. That's simply not going to happen, because, again, there is no incentive for them to do it, and they shouldn't do it. Research is about learning it yourself and getting to grips with things without somebody holding your hand through it. So you should, as I said, build up a love of learning above everything else. You should learn how to learn by yourself, and you should not expect a professor to spoon feed you material. They should be available for doubts, but they, again, are not going to be able to help you. They're not going to be able to handhold you through the entire research internship. So now, applying. How would you apply it for a research internship? Now, some common advice that I have received in the 2 years that I have tried to pursue research, as well as advice that I have given in this past year before I tried it out for myself, is these three. First, that you should cold email professors. They're dying to get students involved in research, and once you email them, they will say, "Thank you for reaching out to me. Please, here's a project. Let's start working immediately." Another thing is that you should keep up a good CGPA, because professors will be very concerned with how much your CGPA is when they ask you to work for them. Another thing is that getting a research internship is a meritocracy. So the best person in your batch, the smartest kid, is going to get that research internship. It's wrong. Most of this advice is wrong, either entirely or to a certain extent. And what's wrong with the cold email advice is that professors are very busy. The better the institute, the more the students are dying to work with professors instead of professors dying to get students to work with them. So there are people, actually, you should look at Khelkar's website, where he talks about what you should do before you email him about a research project. And you will see that a lot of professors, a lot of students want research internships so that they can get a tag on their resume that I have worked in this institute that is very famous, or I have done, or I've worked with this professor who is very famous. Professors don't want to work with such students, because that is not going to sustain them through a research internship. Professors are very wary, and many don't respond to your emails at all. Especially true with foreign universities. I think the situation is better. In India, in fact, my first internship I did get through cold emailing, but again, there are deeper fallacies to this. I'll talk about that in the next slide. But yeah, this is not true to a certain extent. Another one is the CGPA argument, and this is just completely wrong. No one cares about your CGPA. If anything, they will use it as a qualifier. But nobody has asked me for my CGPA, and I'm not saying this because my CGPA is bad, and so I wish that they hadn't, and will tell you that they're not going to ask you for your CGPA. They just don't care. I don't think they see it as something that qualifies you to do research, which it doesn't. It doesn't qualify you to do research. So even if your CGPA is not as good as you think it should be, approach professors for research internships. Another thing is that getting research internship is a meritocracy, and that's wrong. Nothing is a meritocracy. You might be the best person for the job, and you still might not get it. Such is life. But conversely, you might as well apply for every opportunity. If whoever you're thinking of when you think of a research internship might not get it. There's no saying that you won't get it. You might as well apply for every opportunity and see what comes your way. My advice would be that approach professors you know. And I'm talking about a regular student who doesn't have a lot of family academic background, so you needn't know a professor through your family. I'm talking about a regular common student, because I'm a regular common student, who should approach professors in Cummins and in whichever college you're in and talk to them about research. Talk to them about the domain that you're interested in doing research in. If it's coinciding with their domain, talk about something interesting that you read in their research. Ask them if they can refer you to a researcher they know. Why do I say this? I say this because, as I said, you are only as good as your PI or the professor that you work with in your internship. If you cold emails a professor, first of all, they might not respond to you or treat you with seriousness, because they've seen a lot of students who are not serious about research. So if you cold email, you might just get ignored. But you might also fall in with a professor who does bad research or does research not to the quality or interest that you expect out of yourself. No professor will knowingly recommend you to someone who does that research. So that sort of helps cut that fear that you might have, that what if I'm not spending my 2 or 3 months of summer vacation usefully doing good work. So this is one way to sort of um, not have that happen. Another thing is that this has a higher success rate. They're only going to refer you to researchers that they know and that they trust, and that trust them back. What happens then is that when you're referred to by a professor, the professor who you are approaching then with this referral trusts that professor, and that trust is echoed in you. So they still might give you a chance. And this is why there is a higher success rate if you are referred to. And they might even be more interested in your doing well than a random stranger who you're cold emailing. And getting people interested in your doing well is going to help you do research much more than cold emailing strangers and hoping for the best. Another thing is that you should, and I'm saying this in a smaller font and to the side just because there is a caveat to this. You should ask seniors to recommend professors that they think are great to work with, and if they can refer you if they possibly can. Now, the caveat to this is that, first of all, a senior might not, depending on the professor and depending on the student you're asking, the senior might not know the professor well enough to refer you to them. They might not trust you enough to refer you to them, because again, that referral is a sign of trust. So you really need to know a senior and be able to demonstrate genuine interest in a field before they recommend you to good professors. And again, no one's going to recommend you to a bad professor. Everyone is going to recommend you to a good professor. So yeah, talk to seniors, see what happens. At least, if nothing, they'll say, no, I can't. And that's fine. That still leaves you in the same place that you started off with. Now, how do you get to know a professor? A lot of people, when they see this, they think, so then do I need to be a teacher's pet? Do I need to suck up to a teacher all the time and follow them around and say, wow, ma'am, you're great, or something like that? The answer is no, I'm not interested in doing that, and professors aren't interested in hearing that. These professors are much older than you. You're not fooling anybody if you're trying to suck up to them. So be genuine. Talk to them outside class, talk to them about the course, talk to them about research. Ask if they're working on the research project that you can get involved in, and hence get to know them better. Talk to them about what you want to do. You have higher education plans, you think that's something that really interests you and what you want to pursue. Talk to them about it. Ask their opinions on those things. They've been in academia and in research much more than you. And most of them are very helpful. at least what I found is that most of them are very helpful. No one's going to, if anything, they're going to say, no, I don't want to talk to you. That's fine. That doesn't leave you in any worse of a place. Be polite, be kind, be respectful. Don't talk to them to get anything. Don't talk to them saying that I'm talking to this professor to get a referral. Just talk to them. And then they might like you enough to give you a referral, but don't expect anything out of it. Just build a relationship with the teachers that you like and that you respect and who you genuinely want to talk to. And again, as a common student, you would probably interact with every teacher in your department by the time you are halfway through third year. So, as a second year student now, if you're thinking, oh my God, I have not talked to any professor outside class, what am I supposed to do? Don't worry, you still have time. So, take this advice in stride then for the next semester and reach out to professors more. Another thing is that you might actually need letters of recommendation from them in the future. You need letters of recommendation not just for the masters, you sometimes can need them for future internships as well. You very often need them for future internships. And if you speak to them genuinely, they can write more about you than a DWIC-LOR. And DWIC-LOR is a did well in class LOR. A person who is interviewing you for a master's position or is interviewing you for an internship already has your grades in front of them. They know whether you've done well in a class or not. They don't need a professor telling you whether they have done well or not. But again, if a professor has never interacted with you outside class, they can't say anything more about you than she was in my class and she did well. So if something, then you should interact with them more for that. Now, when you get a referral from a professor, you still need to essentially cold email the professor that you want to work with or that you have been referred to. And and also there might be people who are saying that, okay, you're saying that cold emailing will not work. And I have tried it. I have sent out a lot of emails without without the person knowing who I was, and it hasn't worked as well as it is said to for me, and I suspect that it's not going to work for anybody. So, but again, you might see this and say, I don't believe you. I'm going to still try this out. So I'm going to give you advice for cold emailing. And essentially, you're going to also have to cold email if you get a referral. Now, when you want to email a professor, you should read that professor's paper, get to know more about the field and the specific field that they're working on. Instead of saying, I'm very interested in compilers, you should say, oh, you have used single static assessment forms in this, and that's brilliant. I think that's very cool. I don't know much about it, but I'll be interested to know more about it, and I was wondering if I could talk to you about it. They were not going to respond to templates that make it very obvious that you have no idea about the work that they do. And a lot of people are hesitant when they think about an academic paper. It's 12 to 8 pages of technical heavy writing, and you should click this link to read a paper that teaches you how to read a paper. You might find a style that suits you. So yes, read papers and email them about that. Once if you get a referral, you have to mention that in the email that I was talking to X professor and they referred me to you because I'm very interested in the work that you are doing, and then talk about the work. Okay? So now once they respond positively, they will, once they say, okay, yes, hello, X, how do you want to have a short video call so I can get to know more about you? Where they will then conduct a short interview. Generally, they will want to speak to you to be able to ascertain whether you have genuine interest in the field, whether or whether you just want a better understand, and then ask you to review some material till they can assess your strengths and your weaknesses, and then only will they assign you to a project. This can take Well, this can take up from, I think the minimum should be 1 month, because reviewing material can take a lot of time. And with dimensionality reduction in my first internship, I think I did spend, the professor gave me a paper to review and then give a presentation on. And I did spend a month looking at, um, going through a course, figuring out what these terms in this paper meant before giving this presentation. So after this, either it's a presentation or they were just asked to speak to you or talk about whatever doubts you have in that material. Once you do that, then they will be able to assess your strengths and your weaknesses, and then, or even your seriousness. Are you able to stick with material for a month and really try to understand what it is deeply without any help? After that, they will assign you to a project. So it's not going to be spontaneous, it's going to take time. Now, once you meet a professor who is interested in having you over for a research internship, ask about the specifics of the work that you would be doing. Establish what you expect very clearly. Again, levels of expectations from yourself. I expect that I do this. Don't say I expect to publish a paper. That's not a good expectation to have as an undergraduate. Expect to do good work, I think, should be the standard expectation. And be reasonable. Again, that's why you should be reasonable. You're not going to do groundbreaking research, and papers can take years to write, which you cannot do in 2 months. So, unless you want to spend 2 months doing nothing, ask about the specifics of the work that you would be doing. If it doesn't work, if it isn't work that you are happy with, clearly communicate that it isn't and ask to be reassigned to a different project. The best teachers only want for you to learn. And you shouldn't be scared of the professor you are talking to. You should instead trust them enough to clearly communicate with them. And yes, if you are cold emailing without referrals at all, be prepared to send out a lot of emails. I've heard 200 is a common number. I don't think I've sent 200, but I do know people who have sent 200. And be prepared to be rejected. The reason why 200 comes up is that you are rejected a lot without referrals. So now different research programs that you can, so the referral method, I think, is the best way to get a professor who is interested in working for a student and doing genuine good research. But you can also reach out to research programs, and IITs have different research programs that you can apply to. Most applications begin in January. IISC's programs are also there. Their applications end in October or November, so keep an eye out for that. And with foreign internships, foreign research internships, I think for next summer it won't. I mean, I've heard that the US has cancelled visas for summer 2021. The J1 visa that you would go on if you were a research student. So this might not even be something that you can work towards. But again, with foreign internships, the idea that professor knows who the professor knows a colleague who says that this student who can vouch for a student is triply applicable. So the exorbitant fees might not be worth it if you are doing work only for 2 months without ever having contacted that professor before or having not done domain work, background domain work before. But still, the exorbitant fees part actually can be overcome because there are different programs that pay you during the internship and also pay for your travel expenses. And I had sent an email about this for Cummins students. Please refer to that for more links and information. If you aren't from Cummins, in the description box below, there is a GitHub repo with a PDF of different internships. I think there are IISc and IIT research internships in there as well. So look out for them and submit your application there. And good luck. Okay, I'm going to take a short break, drink some water. I'm not used to talking for so long. Are there any questions of whatever we've covered so far?
We actually don't have any.
Okay.
I wanted to ask you something though. I asked this to everyone. What is a good or a qualifier CGPA?
Isn't a qualifying CGPA? No one cares about your CGPA. At least when it comes to research. For companies, it can be different, but I think a good CGPA would just be something that is above 8. Um, that should be fine. So yes,
Okay.
don't take my word for that. I
Yeah.
don't think CGPA importance it has that much importance though.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's fine. Don't hold yourself back because of a CGPA essentially. So
Yes.
yeah. Okay, so part C, and I think we'll be done in about 10 to 15 minutes now. After applying and during the internship, what you're looking for during an internship is the impact that you have. And if you apply early, say 6 months before your internship would actually start, you have already assured that you will be going to that institute in 6 months and spending 2 or 3 months there. Spend that time before your internship to build up domain knowledge so that you can spend those 2-3 months on site doing real work with the professor instead of building domain knowledge then. Okay? Once there, you should fight for good work if necessary. Believe in yourself, be reasonable. As an undergraduate, you have to be reasonable, but also believe in yourself and the kind of work that you want to do and that you can do. If you're unhappy with the situation, ask for a change and clearly communicate what you want from an internship. The impact that you have is a function of the time that you put in. So if you find a professor and an opportunity where you have when you can do really good work, if not great work, realize how rare and lucky that is and give it everything that you have because it doesn't come very often. And build a relationship with that professor as well because that professor itself is extraordinary if they're really giving you time and expertise and guidance. Now, my experience, very briefly, first of all, I would like to talk about privilege. Now, these research internships aren't paid. You might have to bear the brunt of travel and living expenses. And I'm very lucky to have parents who support me through this and um, help me go on these research internships. A lot of people don't. Even deciding to pursue research beyond a research internship is also a great privilege because I don't need to provide for anybody so I can make decisions that will only pay off in later years and not have an immediate reward, hopefully at least. And another thing is that my parents support and encourage my decisions, and that itself can be quite rare. Sometimes parents have strict ideas of what that child should do with their career, and thankfully, at least my parents have left that up to me. In terms of the fact that a lot of research internships don't pay you, some research internships might, but a lot of them don't. And I don't think you should look at that as a negative because, again, you aren't really providing a lot of value to them because it can take years to build up that kind of value. However, you are being paid in guidance and expertise, and you learn a lot. So it is worth it, even if you are not paid. Another thing is that you need a certain level of courage to be able to do research, particularly maybe in these colleges where research isn't talked about a lot, and which is why it can be a bit isolating. Pursuing research can be a bit isolating, and I can't talk about something that I'm currently working on, which is liveness based flow and context sensitive analysis with any of my friends because nobody knows what it is or thinks that it's interesting. If I have to describe the kind of work that I'm doing, I will first have to give a background presentation about, okay, this is the kind of problem that we're trying to solve, this is the history behind it, and this is what I'm currently working on. So a lot of people don't know what you're doing or think it's interesting, and so you can't really talk to them about that. Additionally, you won't be able to talk to them about things that they are doing in their internships. What is Spring Boot? What is Angular? I don't know. I've only heard about people talking about it. I haven't actually worked on it myself. So choosing to go for opportunities also where you aren't paid is a bit weird, because if you see students of your age going to internships that you have made a conscious decision to opt out of, it can be odd because it's not the norm. Why would you do it then? The reason why I do it is that it's a lot of fun. It is so much fun to do research. I personally think so. It's not for everybody, but it might be for you. And I love learning. It fills me with a lot of joy to learn and to think about research problems, which is why I love it so much and think that it is this much fun. And if you're like me, you might just find it to be as fulfilling as I do. Now, this is the last slide. Some resources that I want to point out to you, just so that you shouldn't think that what I've said is the be all and end all. Talk to more people about it. Particularly, you can find a lot of information on Reddit. Now, there are general subreddits that talk about very general experiences like r/research, grad admissions, ladies of science, etc. But also specific subreddits like r/programming languages, r/machine learning. Now, a few months ago, when I didn't know that this is the internship that I would be doing for this summer, I had actually asked on r/programming languages, since that was a domain that I wanted to explore, that I want to look more into this. What sort of projects can I do as an undergraduate? And I got a lot of helpful, interesting responses. And I ended up writing something called a Lisp interpreter that I learned a lot from. So Reddit is a massively useful resource that you should check out for yourself. Another thing is that you should build relationships with your seniors and talk to them. Join a technical club. AICVS is great for meeting seniors. And yeah, as Isha said, I was head coordinator last year. So, which is why I'm talking about AICVS. And they're doing a great job this year. So, well done, the current team. And so, yeah, you can join a technical club in your college. Talk to seniors, talk about the experience they have with different topics. It doesn't need to be research essentially. And if you are someone who is shy or less outgoing and you want to put yourself out there a bit more, student panel is great to get over the fear of talking to people. Again, I've been in student panel in second year, lots of work, but it did get me out of my shell and help me get over the fear of talking to people. Another thing, when talking to seniors, particularly, I think you should judge the advice that is given to you. Think about bias, think about why they are telling you a certain thing. Think about if the advice that they are giving you just is something along the lines of just do it, just get into Microsoft, just do open source, something like that. If someone is saying you things like that, then you probably aren't getting the whole story, and they probably just want to talk about themselves and hear you affirm whatever they're trying to tell you. So, in which case, you should disregard it entirely. Question them about the specifics of what they did. What did you learn? What would you have done differently? Um, what are your takeaways from this experience? And yeah, if it seems really easy, if someone is saying just do this and you will get X, you might not be getting the whole story, and you should try to question it a bit more. So yes, that is it. I'm done. Thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for hearing me out. And you can read the specifics of my internship here. Again, you can't click a YouTube video, but everything is in the GitHub repository in the description. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. That's also in the description. I'm not that active on LinkedIn. If if you want to ask me something, I suggest you email me at this email address. I'm most active then, and you'll probably get a response in a day or two. So yes, thank you again. Do you have any questions? In which case, please be free to ask.
Yes, there are a couple of questions. The first one is it necessary to do research internship if you're willing to do MS?
No, it's not necessary. You can get into a lot of master's programs without doing a research internship or without doing research. And you should look at the particular program that you want to go for. So master's programs can be thesis based or course based. If you are doing a course based program, then they're less likely to look at the research experience you have. But again, depending on the prestige of the program and depending on how selective it is, research experience can be a very good way to distinguish yourself from other candidates and have them see that you are someone who's really interested in higher education and learning deeply about things. So yeah.
The second question that we have is, can you recommend some professors in Cummins who would give research opportunity?
Now, I don't want to say this on YouTube, and I don't think even if you ask me in person that I would say, because there are a lot of professors that I think are very helpful and do a lot of really good work, and I think that you should find out for yourself. There is a faculty profile. There are faculty profiles on the Cummins website where you can look at what their area of specialization is. So go from there. If you have them as a teacher for a course, go ahead, speak to them about it in their office outside the course. And don't talk to them don't talk to them only saying that I want a research internship and that's why I will talk to this professor. They will be able to understand that. Talk to them genuinely about the work that they're doing and what you are interested in. So yeah.
Okay. So the third question is, most of the learning done during the research internship or before it?
I like to do all the learning before the research internship so I can go on site, because you're spending money to go to this institute, to travel to it and to live there and do research there. Why would you want to spend all that time learning? You should do the learning before. But I have also met people in my internship who have learned during the internship. So I guess it would depend on what you think is right. Personally, I think that you should be learning before the internship.
Okay. So there's this comment asking, what about the PhD program? So I think it's about the prerequisites.
PhD programs, is very hard to get into PhD programs without good research experience. And so if you're looking for PhD programs, definitely think about research, because essentially what you're looking at when you think about what you're applying for, when you think about PhD programs, is the ability to do research for 2 years of your master's and then 3 or 4 years after your master's in your actual doctorate program. Now, what you're going to be doing for those 6 to 5 years is research. How do you know that research is something that you're interested in unless you have done it before? That is essentially what graduate committees are asking when they look at your profile. Is this person, does this person have the capability to do research? If they have a strong research profile from an undergraduate, then they still can trust you to be able to do research, and then only will they be able to afford you that place in that PhD program. So if you're thinking about PhD programs, definitely look at research internships, because it will be very useful.
Okay. This was great. It was amazing. You gave us a lot of perspective on how to even approach research. You busted a lot of myths, the misconceptions about you have to be rocket science smart or you need to know about what you're interested in since the beginning, or how to approach research as a Cummins student. You boosted a lot of our confidence. So I think that's the initial boost that we need, all of us as beginners. Having said that, you also gave us a reality check about, there could be fake research, or as you said, there are no flashy like apart from the flashy topics, none of those are being explored, or expectations from a professor, or people just like choose an algorithm, get results, cite sources, all of that. You just gave us a reality check. There was a lot to learn. I think all of us need to go back and view the entire video again. And yeah, it was amazing. There were a lot of things to learn. So thank you. I don't think there are a lot of questions. You just broke down every question that a beginner might have, and you answered them all. So I don't think, which is why we don't have a lot of questions.
Sure, no problem. One thing I would suggest is go and click the links that I've put in this PPT so that, because what I have to say can only be said in this 1 hour, 15 minutes. But to gain more perspective on research, go watch those videos, read those talks, think about research more.
Even the link for how to read a paper.
Yeah, that as well.
So I guess this is it.
Sure,
Thank
okay.
you. It was great having you. Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you so much for having me, and all the best for the rest of the webinars. I hope you'll tune into them as well.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.